believe that video is very pertinent to the seventh step that we'll be talking about this evening, because if you're anything like myself, I got a ton of shortcomings. And it took me to really get reduced down to nothing through my addiction to realize of my shortcomings. And as you heard Kasana's father talk about too, life circumstances, and I think that's the whole principle of the seventh step, is admitting your weaknesses. And especially men that portray to be this strong, human being, it's the farthest thing from the truth. The Bible says that when you are weak, then you are strong. Because if you admit that you're weak, then you will become reliant on the strength of God. Lord, I thank you for another day above ground and out of prison. Both the literal form of being incarcerated by bars, and as Jim had said, the mental obsession that goes on between my two ears. That self-made prison that kept me sick and high for all those years. Lord, I thank you for the freedom that I do not take for granted today. Lord, I thank you for the service and the work that you put in front of me on a daily basis. That is so it's right in front of me, but beyond being right in front of me, I thank you for giving me the humility to actually do the work. And Lord, I thank you for being a person that fulfills his promises. That what you've said to me, what this program has said to me, what your Bible has said to me, what the Big Book had said to me, what the NA basic text had said to me, has all come true. And I thank you for being a man of your word. Lord, I ask that you think through my mind and speak through my vocal cords. If there's anything in me that's not of you, I ask for forgiveness so I can stand here right now 100% purified to be one of your vessels. May it be you speaking and not me. Lord, this particular step, this particular literature really stood out to me. So please convey it in the way you want it said and remove me from the equation. In your name we pray, amen. So we're on the seventh step, and just a quick recap of steps 1 through 6. And I can't stress enough the importance of understanding the word we. You are not born to be alone. And we need to get away from that isolation, thinking that we're so unique that nobody understands us. And we long to be connected, yet we pull away from everything. And I see that happening in my own life over the years, and I see it happening to some of you tonight. And you're just too precious to be by yourself. And that's why God put you in this community, as Kasana's father had alluded to. This is truly a family. But it's difficult to get connected to a family. I had a good family. My mom's here tonight. But even as a young person, I could never get connected. I never felt accepted. And for some of you, that might have been because people weren't accepting you. But for me, it was different. I mean, my parents were accepting. My parents were loving. But I couldn't receive the love. I couldn't seem to get connected. And the first step says we admitted. So the word we means that somebody had to help us admit it. Now, if you were to talk to Kasana's brothers, mother, or father, they would tell you that they tried to get Kasana to admit she had a problem. And that's the we of the program. You might come to an AA meeting or a GA meeting or an SA meeting or a CMA meeting or I don't even know if they have CA meetings. I used to go to them all the time. Or an NA meeting. Somebody's got to help us admit that we're powerless and our lives have become unmanageable. For those of you, let me see a show of hands. How many of you are here that aren't in recovery? Raise your hands. Not an addict or an alcoholic. A lot of you. Over 50 of you. So what this step could mean for you is that you are powerless, and it means the same for me. I'm powerless over people, places, and things. And if I try to control something that I'm powerless over, it makes my life extremely unmanageable. For those of you who are extreme codependents, which are a lot of you, even if you're addicts, the majority of every addict or alcoholic is also codependent. They more or less feed off of how they're okay as long as you think they're okay. And that's a hard life to live, that I'm only going to be okay as long as you're okay with me. Let me tell you, if you live your life like that, you'll never be satisfied or fulfilled. Second step says that we came to believe that a power, now it's bringing in the God component, greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. As I prayed this evening, I talked about a self-made prison. The insanity of my mind, even to this day. The insanity of my mind, like Jim alluded to as he got his 2 years. The why behind the what. The what is active addiction. The what is depression. The what is low self-worth. The what is fear and anxiety. Why? Why do you feel that way? That's the insanity. Believing in a power greater than yourself, being God, can restore you to that sanity. Because what's the use of being successful and miserable? What's the use of gaining everything this world may have to offer but not being able to enjoy it? What's the use of your sobriety unless you're happy? I will not be a miserable drug addict in recovery. I will not last long. So restoring me to sanity, restoring us to sanity is critical. The third step says we admitted, we made a decision. Now, a lot of us can say anything. Now, if you were going to talk to our family members, we told our family members that, yeah, we made this decision. But a decision is only a decision if it's backed up by action. Otherwise, it's just empty words. We typically overpromise and underdeliver, and that talks about that in step 6 with our character issues. But step 3 says, made a decision to turn our will, which is internal, and our lives, which are external, lives of service, can't keep what you have unless you give it away, over to the care of God as we understand them. Now a lot of people get tripped up because they don't know about God. They don't know if they trust God. They may be angry at God. What I tell those people is this: you got to try something besides your own willpower, because your own willpower has not worked up until this point. And as you grow in your spirituality, you'll continue to get a better understanding of who God is due to the fact that he'll never lose his reputation over you and your circumstances. If you put in the effort, he'll give you the outcome. The 4th step says made. So as I've said on several past weeks, a lot of us, we fake it. We fake it. We say they're working the steps. But that's why so many of us get stuck on the 4th step, and because you actually got to do the work. We don't like work. So the 4th step says to us that we got to write these things down on a piece of paper. So your sponsor is going to want the evidence of your work. Up until steps 1 through 3, you could fake it. Oh yeah, I'm working the steps. You ain't doing nothing. And the thing is, you get to the 4th step, and that's where people sit and get bogged down for months or a year. Why would you want to sit in your crap for that long? Why? Because you become accustomed to it. There's a little bit of comfort by being afraid, by having resentments. We learned that resentments, well nursed, give you a sense of superiority over people. As long as you're mad at them, you're better than them. But what if you're wrong? What if you're really the cause of that resentment? Well, what if, see, so that's why the 4th step teaches us, made a searching. Now, the word searching, we don't like to search for anything but dope. But we don't like to go deep, we're surfacey. So this step says that we got to search within ourselves, as Jim said, the why behind the what. And fearless. Now, the thing that often gets me about people like ourselves is like, we weren't afraid of nothing in the streets. But we come into these rooms, if somebody doesn't smile at us, we shatter. So it says, made a searching and fearless moral inventory ourselves. That means you got to take a look at where you've been immoral. Of ourselves. We got to stop looking and blaming other people at this step and take a strong look at our fears, our resentments, and our conduct. The 5th step says admitted to God. Now, he already knows, but I'm going to tell you this. As a parent, as Kasana's dad said, as a parent, let's just reference my beautiful daughter here. Now, she's been no bag of chips her whole life. She's doing good now, but we had a rough patch for a while there. No different than my own life. So the 5th step says admitted to God. Okay, now God already knows because he's God, right? Like that gentleman said in the video. I mean, if God can maintain the cosmos, I think he can handle you. So it says admitted to God. So as a parent, I knew she was doing it. But there was something powerful that happened when she admitted it to me.
it closened our relationship. Even though I knew she busted a move and snuck out on a Friday night and didn't come back till Sunday. And she says, no, I was sleeping. But I knew it, but it wasn't up until she admitted it to me and stopped lying. Then we got closer as humans. No different than your relationship with God. So God takes a lot of weight is carried when you admit it to God, to yourself and to another human being, the exact. Now, we don't like to be exact. We like to minimize and fantasize. So we never really tell somebody the full truth. We leave little tidbits out. So the fifth step is now challenging us at a whole different level to admit to God, ourselves, and another human being the exact natures of our wrongs. Now, what would prevent an individual from doing that? Fear. The fear that if you admit this stuff, you're going to get judged. But that's why the fourth step addressed your fear. That's why the fourth step addressed your resentment. So now, last week we talked about the sixth step. We became entirely, that means you just like, man, I had to look myself in the mirror and say, okay, I got this. I wrote this down on paper. I've turned my life over to the will and life over to the care of God as I understood him. Now I've admitted to God, another human being, and myself, the exact natures of my wrong. Now what do I do? Well, now all this stuff, now I'll take it back to the fourth step now, okay? The fourth step says, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of yourself. Now, I actually searched for the why behind the what. I was fearless. I said, okay, why am I resentful? Why am I fearful? Why did I act like this? So now, all this stuff that was way down inside my soul and my spirit is now up because I was fearless and searching. And now I'm like, okay, now what do I do with this stuff? And that's the sixth step. We became entirely ready to have God remove our defects of character. So that the program will say you become sick and tired of being sick and tired. I will say, my pastor has taught me, I was sick of me. I didn't want to be resentful. I didn't want to be full of fear. I didn't want to live like this anymore. So I had to be so ready to have God remove my defects of character. Now you look at the progression of the steps along with the progression of your relationship with God. You started to get introduced to the God concept, and don't tell me that you're some strong believer with a bottle in your mouth, because you're not. I don't care if you're going to church. The devil don't care if you go to church. The devil cares once you start helping people. See, you began to bridge that gap between you and God, your Creator, when you came to believe that a power greater than yourself could help you with your mental anguish. And then you became a little closer to God when you actually made a decision and said, God, my way don't work. I will take your way, but I need somebody to show me how. You came a little closer to God when you admitted to him in step 5. And God says in James 5:16 that if you confess your sins to one another, you will be healed. So that relationship, as I alluded to with Nikki and I, that got close once she admitted it, now I'm closer to God than I was in step 1. Now I can really say to God, because my belief is a little higher than in him now, to say, God, I'm ready, I'm entirely ready to have you remove this stuff that I just dug up in my step 4. The 7th step, as we're on tonight, says humbly ask God to remove our shortcomings. Hopefully you were listening to the last 5 minutes of what I said. You cannot do these steps out of order. They will not work. There's a progression. The program says it's progress, not perfection. We learned last week in step 6 in the AA Big Book, the 12 and 12, said that the only step that you can work perfectly is step 1. And if you do not work step 1 perfectly, you're probably going to relapse. But then it says if you don't work a step 4, your majority of the people relapse. So all these steps are very, very important. Now it says humbly ask God to remove our shortcomings. Well, what are our shortcomings? That's everything that we gathered up until this point. Now, I'll tell you, I said it last week, I believe that relapse is a character issue. I believe that addicts and alcoholics are some of the most talented people I've ever met. But I also believe that your talent will take you places where your character can't sustain you. I believe that talent without character is wasted. I'm a living proof of that. I was a 35-year-old man with little boy issues, and everything that I owned was in a plastic bag leaving 1800 Chicago. It's a character issue. If you are not working the steps, you don't have character. If you don't have a sponsor, you don't have character. If you don't think this is life or death, you don't have character. If you don't think if you're not grateful that you got another chance at your life, that you and I flushed down the toilet countless times, God picked us up from the pit of hell of addiction, put us in a treatment center, put us around people like this, just to give us another chance. I'm not even talking about second or third chances. I'm the God, I serve the God of a million chances. But the one thing I know is this, that I know that I got another relapse in me. I know that. If anybody you tell me that you're never going to do it again, you probably will do it again. I know that I got another relapse in me, but I don't know if I got another recovery in me. Because it was not easy to get back here. I got back here a lot longer than I said I was coming. Because I was stuck on you know what. So the key is, do you want to take the risk? So humbly means teachable. Being humble means relying on something other than yourself. So by step 7, you should have learned a little bit of humility. We learned in the NA basic text on step 3 that spirituality is as simple as open-mindedness and willingness and honesty. So it says humbly. That means, well, you know what happens if somebody actually isn't working this? I mean, let's say somebody is working the steps. And now they're on step 7. Well, by now they got girly back, they got $30 in their pocket, and they might get their license back in a week. So they've lost their humility. All of a sudden they're calling all the shots. It's easy to give God everything when you ain't got nothing. What do you do? I mean, look at me. Look at me. I mean, look at what we got going on here. I still give God everything, and it's a whole lot of everything. Because I know He's the one that gave it to me to begin with. So how am I treating the gift that God has given? It says humbly asking God, like that video said, how big is God to you? To remove our shortcomings. I taught on the steps last summer. God gave me this into my heart. That addicts and alcoholics constantly come up short. How many people constantly come up short? We don't ever really get there. We almost get the job. We almost go to work on time. We almost pay our bills. We almost are honest. We almost went home at the bar closed, but then we hit another party. If you don't work the steps, your short is coming. You don't think it is because you got pride. But if you're doing it your way, you're going to come up short again, and it's coming. And that's the whole principle of the 7th step. Now going to the 12 and 12, it says, for without humility, no alcoholic can stay sober at all. Nearly all AAs have found that too, that unless they develop much more than the precious quality than they require just for sobriety. So now, think about your level of humility that you had when you went into treatment, when you walked in the door. Everybody under the sound of my voice demonstrated humility by coming to this meeting. And I commend you for that. But what the literature is saying here is the humility that it took for you to ask for help to get sober has to increase now. It says the quality they may require just for sobriety, they still haven't much of a chance to become truly happy. What that is saying is this, that the humility that it took for you to ask for help has got to be increased now to have God remove these things from your life, the why behind the what. And there's nothing more troubling to me, and I see it all over the place, of miserable people in recovery. The reason why you're miserable is because you don't got any humility. Self-loathing, self-pity is not humility. Humility is having total reliance on God when you gave Him permission in step 3 to do it. Humility is it saying to be truly happy. I mean, I'm telling you what. I mean, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it just like I did dope. I'm going to do it all the way. So those of you that don't do this all the way, I would really question What kind of fiend were you? How can you be a crack fiend and not a recovery fiend? Because everything I do, I fiend. So why wouldn't I just go for the gusto here and realize that it's all God, not have anything to... Now check this out. Without it, they cannot live to be for much useful purpose or in adversity. They can't. People without humility can't even stand to be corrected or disciplined by their mentor or sponsor. Be able to summon the faith that can meet any emergency. But whenever we had to choose between character and comfort, let me address that for a second. So many of us just want to be comfortable. There's nothing about my life today that is comfortable. This week alone, I got to prepare 3 messages on top of working 60 hours a week, on top of trying to be the best husband and father, and the hundreds of phone calls that I get on it. That is not comfortable, but it's character building. It's character building. And so many people want to take the easier, softer way. AA says that. There is no easier, softer way. But we look for the easier, softer way because we're more concerned with comfort versus care. I hear guys murmuring, claim, I don't like living with 7 guys. I said, well, where were you living before this? Well, I can't remember. Well, what were you doing where you were living? Well, I was drinking, getting high, gambling. What? So, I mean, sometimes to be uncomfortable produces a reward. When do we relapse? It's when everything levels out. We relapse when we're comfortable. And it says the character building was lost in the dust of our chase after what we thought was happiness. I mean, what we think is happiness is not happiness. Seldom did we look at character building as something desirable itself, something we would like to strive for, whether our instinctual needs were met or not. See, I mean, your instinct is take the easy way out. Our instincts are to take, to cheat, to take a shortcut. There is no shortcut if you're going to get recovery and freedom. Did Jesus take a shortcut when he was going to the cross? So you ain't going to be able to take no shortcuts to get free either. You're going to have to pay, and anything of value costs you something. And for those of you who had spoon-fed lives, that, it's easy to lose something that doesn't have value, but I've worked for my recovery. I ain't going to give up this ground that God has given me because I've learned in my experience that the Spirit is the first thing to go and the last thing to come back. You got to continuously feed your spirit through the Holy Spirit. Now check this out. It says, for just so long as we were convinced that we could live exclusively by our own individual strength. Are you kidding me? The littlest form of temptation, we cave. The littlest form of agitation, we become angry and offended. Why are we so easily offended in our recovery? It makes no sense to me. Exclusively on our own strength and intelligence. It's a simple program for complicated people. You're not that intelligent. I mean, I used to run an architecture company, and I didn't know how to spell architecture. I don't even know if I still do. But I had to come to the realization that my best thinking got me here. Why would any human being want to do what I did? I was weak, and I'm still weak. And I know that my individual strength isn't going to keep me sober, happy, or content for just as long as working faith in a higher power impossible. So if you're relying on your own strength, if you're relying on your own intelligence, more or less God is going to look at you and say, well, you don't need me, but I'll be here when you do, because we always will. So why would you leave something that you need now? Keep God with you. Jacqueline posted something today, take God with you. Take God with you. See, would you go to half the places you go if you took God with you? Take God with you on your cell phone when you're looking at that pornography. Take God with you when you're looking at Susie Q's you know what. Women, you're not off the hook either. Take God with you as you're lusting and craving for something you don't have. Take God with you with your anxiety and your fear. See, what would your life look like if you took God with you and you realize that my strength is nothing, my intelligence got me locked up? We could actually have earnest religious beliefs which remain barren because we were still trying to play God ourselves. As long as we place self-reliance first. I see so many people doing that in this program right now. Got a couple bucks in their pocket. Some of them even work with me. I mean, it's like, dude. A genuine reliance upon a higher power was out of the question because you got this. You know what's best. You know what you got to do for you. But back when you had the humility to get sober and ask for help, you said, I need help. I don't know what to do. Now you know what to do? Now you know what to do? Have you ever been successful at keeping a blessing? Have you ever been successful at keeping finances? But you know what to do? Do you really know what to do? I don't know what to do. I pastor this church. I don't know what to do. We got 85-bed largest program in the Midwest. I don't know what to do. I own 2 companies. I don't know what to do. I don't even know how to be a father and a husband. But somebody teaches me on a daily basis. As soon as you think you know what you need to do, you are done. And you have no humility. If you think that you know what's best for you, you clearly have forgotten where you came from. You clearly have forgotten where... Now it says, for us, the process of gaining a new perspective wasn't unbelievably painful. It's the pain of change versus the pain of staying the same. Either way, there's going to be pain. It was only by repeated humiliations, not just one humiliation. Oh my God, I can't believe I just did that. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm back in jail. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm back in treatment. Oh my God, I can't believe I just spent every penny I have. Oh my God, I can't believe I just slept with that person over dope. Oh my God, I can't believe I just wrote that check that I didn't have money. Oh my God, I can't believe I just called in sick again. Repeated humiliations. That we were forced to learn something about humility. It was only at the end of a long road, marked by successful defeat. Some of us have only learned to be successful at losing. I'm a successful loser. I had to realize that. I was afraid of actual success. And anytime I got close to it, I sabotaged it. I wrecked it, and I had to figure out why I would think so lowly of myself. And the best thing that ever happened to me as I was at Teen Challenge, and I had the 2 head people looking right at me, I said, well, I don't need treatment. I've been to treatment so many times. I got my company. I got my house. And they looked at me and said, brother, the only thing you got is a crack habit. I wanted to punch them in the face. But the truth hurts. The truth hurts. And that took humility to realize what they were saying was true. It says we enjoy moments in which there is something like real peace of mind. See, one thing we've got to realize, people, is this. Not every day is going to be a good day. It's not meant to be easy. For those of you who are not addicts and alcoholics, they have a bad day and they just go to sleep. We have a bad day and we ruin our lives. To those of us who have hitherto known now check this out. This is totally me. I don't know if it's you too. But it says, to those of us who hitherto known only excitement, depression, and anxiety, in other words, to all of us, this newfound peace is a priceless gift. Something new indeed has been added. Now, that's my MO. I was either on top of the mountaintop of life or in the pit of despair, all within 30 minutes. Let me tell you something. Circumstances don't equate happiness. I got good circumstances. And when that dark cloud comes, we talked about that in men's group last week. You gotta do something when you sense it coming, because we can see it coming. Until now, our lives have been largely devoted to running from pain and problems. We fled from those like the plague. We don't like to deal with stuff. That's why step 4 says, searching and fearless. We never wanted to deal with the fact of suffering. Escape via the bottle was always the solution. Character building through suffering might be all right for saints, but it certainly didn't appear to us. I'm here to tell you that either way you live your life, you're going to have to suffer. If you suffer like Jesus does, that bursts rewards. If you suffer in your addiction, that bursts consequences. Either way, you're going to have to suffer. You can't tell me that you weren't suffering in your addiction. So, you need to learn to suffer in your recovery. And it says, during this process of learning more about humility, the most profound result of all this was the change of attitude towards God. And this was true whether we had been believers or unbelievers. What does step 3 teach us? Spirituality is open-mindedness and willingness. We began to get over the idea that a higher power was a sort of bush league hitter to be called upon in an emergency. Yeah, I relied on God in the backseat of the cop car. I relied on God when my heart stopped because of cocaine and heroin. I relied on God before I went in front of the judge. But beyond that, I didn't rely on him at all. And it's very important to understand, what would your life look like today if you just kept relying on God? We began to get over the idea that a higher power was a bush league hitter. The notion that we would still live our own lives, God helping a little now and then, began to evaporate. Refusing to place God first, Matthew 6:33 says, seek first the kingdom. That's where this comes from. Put God first, he'll give you everything you need. We had deprived ourselves of his help. See, God has to be first. And part of God is recovery. There's nothing, because at the end of the day, guys, your addiction came first. Your addiction got all your money. Your addiction took time from your family. Your addiction came before your job. Your addiction came before your health. Your addiction came before your food. Your addiction came before your sleep. And that's the same thing that God requires. Amen. He wants to have the same priority that your addiction did. See, we've got to understand that. And it says, but now the words of myself, I am nothing. See, I am nothing. I, to this day, am nothing. Nothing. The Father doeth the works began to carry a bright promise and meaning. So it says now, we would like to be assured that the grace of God, I've been teaching on that lately at church. What is grace? Grace is divine assistance. That's where you end and God begins. Grace gets you over the mountain. Can do for us that we cannot do for ourselves. We have seen that character defects based on a short-sighted, unworthy desires of our obstacles that block our path towards these objectives. We now clearly see that we've been making an unreasonable demand upon ourselves, upon others, and upon God. I had a conversation with somebody I love dearly last night. I say, maybe lower the demands a little bit of yourself. See, a lot of times, guys, we set ourselves up for failure. Why are you so hard on yourself? Now, don't be the type of person that I say that to and now all of a sudden you're not going to do anything. But it says the chief activator of our defects has been self-centered fear. Primarily fear that we would lose something we already possessed. Now, again, top priority addiction. We weren't concerned that we were going to lose something we possessed when addiction was our top priority. And let me ask you something. What you possessed that you left because of your addiction must not have been that important to you because you wouldn't have left it. And the reason why you left it is because of your fears, your resentments, your character defects, and your shortcomings. Not because you're a bad person. But when you got all that going on up here, that's all we do is run. And that's why we got to ask God to remove that. Now check this out, check this out. I mean, this literature is so spot on. That's why God gave it to us. And it says, it's so important. It says, if we only, no, check this out. I'm going to go back to the it works how and why. It says, if that degree of humility can enable us to find the grace by which the deadly obsession be banished, then we must hope of the same faith respecting any other problem could possibly have. Now, for those of you that have not experienced tonight the obsession to use, to drink, to act out, if that obsession is still there, you're on step 2. But if God truly has removed your obsession to drink, use, act out in whatever your addiction may be, how can He not remove your fear? How can He not remove your anxiety? How can He not remove your unworthiness and unforgiveness? If He took the very thing that I never thought I could quit, why can't I give Him my anxiety? Why can't I give Him my anger? Why can't I give Him my fear? Why can't I give Him my manipulation? Why can't I give Him my lying and my dishonesty? Now I'm going to go up a bullet point because this one really stood out to me. Because there's nothing more depressing than an addict with entitlement. When I see him coming, I run. It says, living upon the basis of unsatisfied demands, we were at a state of continual disturbance and frustration. Like this world owes you anything. I mean, if we got what we had coming to us, we should be dead or in prison. Bottom line. So unsatisfied, like anything I got is a gift, so I'm going to treat it as such. Check this out. Therefore, no peace to be had unless we could find means of reducing these demands. The difference between a demand and a simple request is plain to anybody. Now I want to address something. I want to address your family members. Because a text came across my phone today, and you're going to get twisted. I could care less. Wanting to miss church on Sunday because you got dinner. You can't work around. That's not that your priorities are off. And if your family members think it's a good idea, they're just as off as you are. Because your family members are the people that dropped you off at my door. But yet, when you convince them that this is good for you, you will destroy them and you again, and then they'll drop you back off at my door. Our door. If my mom who's here today, if I came to her and say, hey mom, I'm in this program and one of the requirements is because I got to go to church, and I go, Mom, I'd really like to spend the night with you. Hadn't seen her in 3 weeks, but now it's important. My mom would say to me, are you kidding me? You get your butt to that church right now. I've been dealing with your manipulation for years. I mean, I don't even get to see my kids anymore like I used to because my recovery comes first. They don't understand. It's painful, but I'd rather have them experience that pain than seeing me at my gravesite. Not everybody's going to understand your commitments that you have to make. And it's like, I mean, it's like, it says it works how and why. To work the 7th step, we must get out of the way. Eric Darling, stand up. When did you graduate this program?
I was in and out probably 2005.
Well, how long have you been sober?
10 years.
Let's give him a hand. Now, Eric Darling gave me something. I'm going to read this again because Eric Darling gave me some great wisdom many years ago. It says, to work the 7th step, we must get out of the way so that God can do the work. Eric Darling told me that there's the difference between a chump and a champ is the letter U. Are you going to be a chump or a champ? See, so many times, guys, we get in the way of what God's trying to do. Humbly asking for removal of our shortcomings means that we're giving a complete license to a loving power to work in our lives, believing that God's wisdom far exceeds our own. Not just God, giving my pastor a complete license, whatever he says goes. That's why I am where I am. He needs something, it's done. He needs people to volunteer, it's done. I came hard on my guys last week. I'm like, it is an absolute joke that I have to ask anybody to canvass the neighborhoods. That list should be so long, you forgot where you came from. It is a joke that nobody cleans this church. It is a joke that you don't show up for shelters. It is a joke that addicts aren't making sandwiches for. It's a joke. You have no character. And if you don't make that sandwich for somebody that's hungry, we'll be serving that sandwich to you next week down on the street. Don't forget where you came from. That you're bigger than this now. You're tired because you worked 8 hours. You haven't worked in 5 years. God Almighty. But yet you can't. God lays out Serenity sandwiches, feeding the homeless at the shelters, cleaning the church, helping clean up the car. But yet I got a pregnant woman doing it, and you're home sleeping. That's bogus in and out. You don't sign up for service opportunities. That's a character issue. I shouldn't have to ask any of you to do anything, because the one thing is, I didn't ask you to come here. But you begged me to come here. Can you help out? No. But can I have a job? It's a shame. It's a joke. It's a tragedy. I go to the shelters so I don't have to live in them. I pay for some of the sandwiches so I don't have to be on the street eating them. I go to prisons with messages so I'm not incarcerated. I go to detox to take a 12-step meeting so I don't have to end up in detox. And if I got time to do that, with what I got on my plate, it's a joke. It's a joke. It's a character issue. It's a joke that I got 5 people with these 2 that are out every Saturday. And we've got a core of 30 people that are in recovery, that are under the sound of my voice. They don't miss anything. And I thank you, and I know who you are. But the rest of you, you want something, you want everybody to drop anything when you have a need. But God forbid you do something for somebody else. You ain't going to make it. You ain't going to make it. I don't forget what it was like to crawl on the floor, to beg for a little pebble of crack cocaine. I don't forget what it was like to get those divorce papers. I don't get what it was like. I don't forget what that food tasted like at 1800. I don't forget what it looked like in jail. I don't forget what the pain of my kids face. I don't forget that. If you aren't serving, you have forgotten that. You come, now I'll tell you this, you come to this meeting and you take from what I'm teaching. I've spent hours studying, and you come and you take like you're on some sort of freebie, but yet you don't give anything back to this ministry. And you think it's my obligation to teach you this every week? Go to any other sober house. They ain't doing this. This is an extra. Amen. This ain't included in your 500. But yet I'm tired. I'm busy. And I'm offending a whole lot of you. I love you enough to tell you the truth. I love you enough to tell you the truth. And what it's saying here is so true that, you know what, man? I'm not going to be a taker. I'm going to be a giver. And I need to get out of the way. And God's wisdom and my pastor's wisdom and my sponsor's wisdom far outsees. Patience is an essential ingredient for working the step. It says our concern is not to determine exactly how or when our shortcomings are removed. It's not our job to analyze this step. This step is a spiritual choice, a choice that goes beyond our emotional reaction and conscious act of will. To choose to bypass this would leave us with a heightened awareness of our character defects, no hope, relief. We're coming. Now, here's the thing. Where do you get your relief? I get my relief in serving. But if you're not getting relief anywhere, you're going to go for the ultimate relief, addiction. It says, by admitting this, we achieve a glimpse of humility. Humility is a result of getting honest with ourselves. And here's the thing, guys. Here's what I failed miserably on. I couldn't get honest with myself. I was a taker. I was a severe drug addict. I wrecked everything that crossed my path. So I had to wait. If you do not get honest with yourself, Somebody's about ready to get honest with you. Have you ever had a judge be honest with you? You've been in front of me, you've gotten this. I'm going to be very honest with you. It's not safe for you to be on our streets. Have you ever had your kids be honest with you? That's painful. Dad, you're an addict. You don't love me because that drug is more important than me. That's brutal honesty. Brutal honesty. We have to get there. It says, we found strength beyond ourselves and we learned to rely on it. We examined our lives and discovered who we really are. To be truly humble is accept to try to be ourselves. Be yourself. I'm a mess. I'm a disaster. That's just me. By admitting that, I'm asking for help. None of us are perfectly good or perfectly bad. We are people who have assets and liabilities. Most importantly, let me talk about that real quick because I'm going way over here. Admit that you're a liability. You are not greatest thing since sliced bread for the company you work for. You could be drunk tonight and be never showing up at the company again. Quit thinking that you're all that in a bag of chips. Your boss, I'm a boss. And the thing is, anybody who is an addict like me, like I told you guys a couple weeks ago, they took 20 life insurance companies to insure me because I'm a liability. My business partner, at any day I could go up missing. So maybe I'm not as good as I think. I got guys all the time say, oh, I need a job, I need a job, I need a job. A week later, they're complaining the pay isn't enough. I got people think I'm the bank, the pastor, the counselor, the police officer, the child support mediator, and everything else. What do I owe you? I don't owe you nothing. I'm doing this out of the kindness of my heart. Why? Because somebody did it for me. Like, oh, hey, I heard, what do you mean? I don't have to do this? I mean, they just expect so much from so many people, but yet do nothing for anybody else. Accepting defects of others is very important, and it's humbling. And it says you can help become humble to pave the way for your own duties. Now, James 4:10, humble yourselves, feeling very insignificant in the presence of the Lord. And he will exalt you, he will lift you up and make you significant. When I studied that verse today, this is what stood out to me. There's a difference between so many of us, including me at one time, were chasing success. I thought success, worldly success, would bring me happiness. And so did you. And you and I are talented enough, if we stay sober, to be successful. But there's a difference between being successful and being significant. Being significant means that you will leave a legacy on this planet. I was at a Grateful Dead show once, and I ran into my old buddy, and he says, thank God you're sober, because your tombstone wouldn't have said slave to crack cocaine. But I'm going to warn you about success. Don't chase success, because all success gives you is more money to give to the dope man. We're going to close with the AA 7-step prayer. And the reason why I am where I am today is my sponsor at the time took me into a room, just him and I. And he said, get on your knees. And we're going to say this prayer. And I said, I don't feel comfortable doing that. He says, I don't care. So I did it. And we're going to do it right now. And if anybody wants to come up as we close, I've never done this in a recovery meeting, but God told me to do it, so I'm going to do it. If you want to come up and kneel at this altar and say this prayer with me and work a 7-step, please do so. And if you're not sitting in your chair, just please say it with us if you choose so. And just repeat after me as the people come down. This comes from AA. My Creator,
I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. God bless you.